Welcome to this bonus episode of Count Me In. Recorded live at Oracle NetSuite SuiteConnect NYC, I'm excited to bring you a conversation with Sue Vestri, the CFO at CRIO. Sue has a wealth of experience, moving from early days in startups and VC-backed companies to leading finance teams at rapidly scaling organizations. Throughout her career, she has seen the CFO role transform from strictly number crunching to becoming a true strategic business partner. In this episode, Sue shares lessons learned from building finance infrastructure from the ground up, how to scale systems thoughtfully, and why a culture of continuous improvement and embracing innovation matters now more than ever, especially when it comes to AI. So whether you're in a finance leadership role or just fascinated by the intersection of finance and technology, you'll have plenty of actionable insights from our conversation. So get ready as we dive deep into what it takes to thrive as a modern CFO, staying ahead of change, empowering teams, and ensuring that finance is a driving force across the business. Let's get started. Well, Sue, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm really excited to chat with you. And you have, I wanted to talk to you as a CFO because it evolves. You know, as a company's going through different growth stages, the CFO kind of role evolves. Can we maybe talk a little bit about what that looks like? Because you've been in like rapid pace environments, you've been startups, you've been in all these different aspects.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and the role is it's sort of different depending on what stage of company you're in, but it's also different just over time.
Yeah.
I think if you go sort of way back. CFOs and finance people are kind of looked at as the people that sort of sit in the back room and, produce numbers and answer questions when they're asked and so forth. And I've never really been like that, but it's so important now more than ever to really be an operational CFO where you really have your finger on the pulse of the entire business and what's going on. And having those relationships across the company with the other leaders so that you have a sense of not just producing numbers, but what's behind them and what they're telling you. And so I think that if you are kind of that old school mentality, you're probably not going to last very long in today's world as a CFO. Yeah. And certainly, some of the earlier stage companies that I had done, you wear many hats. So you kind of fill in wherever, doing whatever. So I've had a lot of different things reporting to me. My career kind of started with, more VC-backed companies, even a family-owned kind of startup. And now I've kind of been in the private equity CFO world, which has different responsibilities and requirements, but it doesn't change the foundational aspect of really being part of the entire business holistically.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed. You've been part of startups, you've been a part of like some public companies. So what does that look like, going from like a venture, a VC-backed thing to like a public company and then jumping around? What was that like going to those different avenues?
Well, I'm very thankful to not be running around asking founders if they have any room on their credit cards anymore. So long past that.
Imagine.
Yeah. But that happens, in startups. And definitely like working for companies where, there's funding behind it as opposed to you're kind of always in, capital raising mode because it's important but also distracting. So I've kind of evolved through my career past some of those stages. I really enjoy getting involved in companies that are in that sort of early to middle stage. They're past the startup. They're kind of past the teenager stage, and they're kind of getting into fully formed adult companies.
Yeah.
And I think that's where there's a lot of opportunity to really help them, on their growth path.
So what's something you learned at an organization that you had to scale rapidly? How was it like, especially in the finance function, having to scale very rapidly, very quickly?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest areas actually is in the accounting platform.
Yeah.
One of my previous companies, we actually were told by the software company that we're using that we had outgrown them. Mm-hmm. Like we were literally going to break it.
Okay.
So we needed to do something, which we knew anyway because it was highly manual. But doing any kind of a massive system implementation change is is challenging and requires a lot, but that's probably one of the biggest things that we had to do. And you have to be careful to think ahead to like what you need down the road a bit, which is sometimes difficult, as opposed to just making some kind of quick fix. So while we did have to make a very monumental transition, we did it in a thoughtful way so that we didn't have to do it again anytime soon.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you're scaling, it's not something that you can do easily. Because like you could be right here today and then jump up there tomorrow. And so how do you prepare for that? Yeah,
you really have to be careful to think about, again, like where are you trying to get? Are you building a business for scale? And if you're working for a growing business, which has been the case for me for many years now, what might work for you right now isn't necessarily going to work for you, 2 years from now or 5 years from now. Never mind your own growth, but if you start to do any kind of M&A and you're integrating other companies. So just kind of specifically to touch on NetSuite for a minute. So I've implemented NetSuite 5 times.
Okay.
And this most recent one, I really had to give some thought to how we structured it, knowing that there might be like acquisitions in our future and things like that. And now also with the introduction of all of the AI aspects of things across the board, having the capability to stand up the analytics warehouse, things like that. Again, like I don't need all of the features and functionalities right this second, but I want to make sure that when I do need them, that I have them. So thinking bigger picture, I guess, is a big thing.
Yeah, like you might not need all the bells and whistles today.
Exactly.
But in 6 months, you might need another bell and another whistle, and you kind of add them on as you grow.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm even running into a situation right now where we didn't bring over all of our historical data from our previous system. And I was like, well, we can go back and we can look at it if we need to. But when you think about AI and analytics and things like that going forward, it's like, I really need to have that data, like someplace where I can get to it. And so kind of thinking about those types of things as well,
You mentioned being an operational CFO, and you've held operations roles, you've held CFO type roles. What has that dual perspective given you as a leader as you've moved forward?
Yeah, I think that you have to understand, how's the company going to make money, right?
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Obviously, it's great to understand what you're selling. That's certainly pivotal, and keeping track of that. But so much of what goes into revenue delivery and margin is the operational aspect of the business. So, how long does it take to get a customer up and running? Are there gaps in the product feature set that are preventing people from adopting or using the product more than they already are? We are really starting to dig into metrics. Everybody in SaaS software companies tracks, ACV, and that's great. But do you actually, sales folks will put in their contracts and their ACV values into Salesforce, and then you wonder to yourself, well, do we ever actually get that, actual revenue? And so I work very closely with our operations leader on understanding, like, did we actually deliver that, that revenue, or did we deliver more or less? What's impacting it? So everything from knowing what the product is doing, what's on the roadmap, what they're delivering, what the obstacles are for clients, what's the sales motion, how are we presenting our products and things like that. Yeah. So it's just really everything that helps me to be a better partner, not only to our CEOs, but the investors and the PE firms.
So as environments are constantly changing, how do you keep up? Like, what do you do? What does it take to be effective at keeping up with the fast-paced environment? Yeah. Especially, you've been in very fast-growing companies, but also just in any organization nowadays, things are moving very quickly.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to take a day off to come to New York and come to a conference. But
yes, it does.
But it's a great question. I think you have to make time for it, first of all. I very much have a philosophy of continuous improvement. So with my teams, anybody that's worked for me will know it's always about, we're doing great, whatever, but what can we do next? What can we do to make it better? So I think, change and knowledge, kind of has to come from the top. Like, I have a belief that you should continuously learn and understand what's going on, and empowering people that work for you to also do the same. CRIO right now, we are really embracing a culture of using AI. So we've created an AI champions program where there's different people within every department that are kind of spearheading, ideas and working sessions, brainstorming to kind of see what kinds of things we can be doing. I came to CRIO April of last year. We weren't even talking about AI. It was really, not really. It's there. We all use it. Everyone goes into, ChatGPT or Claude and kind of puts answers into questions in there. But now it's, it's embedded in our development, workflow. It's embedded in our customer support. We're using it for all kinds of things. And so my team, it might be going to a conference. It might be, leveraging learning materials that are available through NetSuite or even through any of the AI platforms. So a lot of knowledge right now is self-service. Sure. But you have to create time and also willingness amongst your team. So it starts with me. So just coming away from this conference today, there's some things where it's like, I'm going back to the office and we're getting on a call and I'm going to show everybody how to use this because this is really cool. Yeah. So I think you have to stay attuned not only to, what's changing and what's available, but also sort of having a filter because you could also be running around like a squirrel and chasing all these different things. So kind of what's meaningful and prioritizing. But yeah, lots of information coming at you.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of information. So how do you create that culture of learning and help your team learn, but also hey, we still need to do our job, but I want you to grow and upskill?
Yeah, exactly. So some of it is a little bit of just setting some departmental goals.
Sure.
And we talked about that recently. The other thing is, allowing people the time to go do it. There's been a few things lately I've come across where even my HR director, I was like, this would probably be really interesting for you if you're, go to this for the day. We're going to do some workshops just internally because there's so much. If I just let everybody go help yourself, So we're going to pick some key things and we're going to do some in-house training, and I'm going to task some people with maybe taking on a project, nothing crazy, but putting them in a position where they can utilize, some of these tools and some of these learnings. And I think if they see me embracing it and the rest of our leadership embracing it, we're just kind of creating a culture in that way. And CRIO is unique because we have co-CEOs, so we have two. And our one CEO, who was the founder, is very AI forward, and so he's championing it from the top, and I think that's how we're kind of a organic, kind of swell of interest in learning new things.
So what's it like building a finance team from the ground up? Because you've been at the beginning of some organization. What's that like?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've inherited teams and I've built teams and I've built and inherited teams, and so. I have been, an army of one, and ultimately built, very large teams and some early stage startups. In the case of CRIO, there were a few folks that were already there, and thankfully had kind of laid a good foundation. But one of the things that I learned in particular about working in a private equity-owned company, really important to have a super strong finance, right hand. Both from an analytics perspective and just being able to produce the reports that are needed and the metrics that are needed in private equity. So I've been fortunate enough to take some people with me, from here and there, but certainly looking for giving people an opportunity who are there, but they have to have the mindset of growth, of being willing to grow, being willing to learn, being willing to cross-train other people and not be like, this is mine, I'm not going to let go. Giving people opportunity for growth, empowering them. But you have to have the right people in the right seats for sure. Yeah. But I do like to give, and the people that that were there when I got to CRIO, they're still there, and I've just added to the team. So it's worked out really well there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I love talking to CFOs because you have a hand on the pulse of what the infrastructure needs for an organization. So what does that look like, especially when you're coming to a company and they're growing rapidly and you have to find the gaps in the infrastructure and get the right tech stack in place, because a lot of times CFOs suddenly become the IT leader too.
That is so true. So oftentimes, especially in a company that's been recently acquired, some of that work has a little bit been done for you in terms of the assessment, because there's so much due diligence that goes on. So, your PE partners are happy to share with you all of the things that they found,
Of course.
and certainly you have to prioritize that. But definitely, you need to look at the people and the team and the tools for sure. So we made the decision fairly quickly that we were going to change our ERP platform. In particular for us, being a SaaS company, subscriptions, recurring billing, we are more complicated because we have a fairly big usage component to our billing, and we service the clinical trial space. So often our contracts are based on the length of a study as opposed to a specific contract length.
That can get complicated.
Very complicated.
Yeah.
So finding the right tools, ERP, that can handle that complex billing. And I am a little tied to NetSuite just because we piloted Suite Billing for them in one of my prior companies when it first came out. And so I've watched it grow over the years. But subscription billing is not trivial. So that was a big thing to get that system up and running, but also evaluating all the other tools that touch accounting, like your payroll system, how you do expense management and credit card management. We have sales tax, things like that, and having a platform that naturally allows you to integrate with those systems pretty seamlessly, rather than having these kind of they are bespoke and kind of best in breed for what they do. But I can pull all of that information into the ERP, into NetSuite, and it allows me to have everything all in one place. So we've also eliminated some tools, so there's been some cost savings. That just makes everything a lot more efficient, because it eliminates having to do manual journal entries for things and all kinds of stuff. So foundationally, the ERP system was certainly a core, and looking at the tools holistically across the board, seeing what we can get rid of, seeing what are the best things to use. So, and then also really just implementing NetSuite or any ERP, having a good partner to do that, who's, again, got kind of the same mindset about looking forward and getting the right sort of implementation done and things like that. And then for me also just building trust with the rest of the leadership team. I was new for them when I came in, and so many of them had been there for quite a long time. They went through all the hard part of getting the company to where it was, and then I show up like the first CFO, and you don't know how people are going to react to that. So taking the time to get to know them, earn the trust, learn the business, really important.
Were there like early warning signs or signs that you could say, hey guys, this is happening, we need to change, we need to upgrade?
Yeah, it was pretty clear with when I watched what the month-end close process was in particular. Well, so it took them about 3 weeks, and I was like, that's not going to work for any private equity firm. And so, the team, their first reaction was like, in a way, like, well, that's how long it takes. And I'm like, no, we can't take that long. So when I think back, a year and a half or so, how far the team's come. But yes, shortening that time to close, quality of data and information, those were big changes for the company, for sure. Yeah.
So SaaS is a different type of model, especially when it comes to the accounting side of things. What was it like moving from like your traditional accounting to like a SaaS model, or a company that has a SaaS model and doing those accounting differently?
Yep. So I go back quite a long way with recurring revenue. It was before it was called SaaS, in an internet company way back when, where it was still monthly billing, right? You're billing every month. So it was one of the first kinds of recurring revenue businesses. And really, ever since then, it's just evolved into now what SaaS is and cloud-based. So I made the move from a really big company, humongous accounting department. I pivoted to a software company that was, doing SaaS software was petrifying. I was like, what am I doing? I'm going to this company with like 100 people. And I just got sucked in because the tools that are available in SaaS, but generally speaking, from a business perspective, I've been doing it for a really long time. Clinical trials threw me for a loop, though, because it's very difficult. I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know when, particularly, they estimate and they guess and things like that. So it has its challenges, but I had a great foundation just from that recurring revenue billing model. And software ERPs have come a long way from take your last month's invoice, clone it, and post it. That was kind of the old way of doing recurring billing.
Yeah.
So very happy that over the years, systems have evolved. But it's definitely a different accounting model, and you have to contend with things like deferred revenue and timing of revenue. There's lots of good GAAP accounting rules you have to consider, and but I've learned a lot over time, and kind of it's really where my sweet spot is. So.
Yeah.
I guess I'm lucky.
It sounds like you've been doing it for a long time. You've kind of seen it evolve over time. So when you're looking at some of those metrics, as a finance leader, how do you prioritize, forward-looking decisions or?
Yeah, so it's actually something that we're really focused on right now, because everyone and most systems now can give you basic, ARR and churn and, net recurring revenue and things like that. So I think from a business perspective, where we're starting to dig in is, for example, on ACV realization, but also things like, once a deal is closed, how long is it until we see first revenue? Is there anything we can do to shorten that cycle?
Yeah.
What are the blockers for it? Really starting to look at some predictive, again, because we have this usage-based component. It's easy to predict your recurring revenue when it's fixed. As long as your customers aren't churning, you have a good idea of what that's going to be. Usage-based revenue is a lot more difficult, so we're trying to look at ways to see how we can get a lens into what our variable revenue is going to be. And so for us in particular, it's based on visits into a clinical site. So our operations leader is helping me to look at visits scheduled. So how does that translate into people actually showing up and that visit counting as revenue? So I would say it's that next level down metrics, which really are where you start to dig into the operations of the business, and it gives you clues into some things that maybe you can optimize. And in fact, we're using AI quite heavily in the early stage process of getting a company up and running in our system, because it was a highly manual process previously. And so we're measuring right now, like this new AI tool is helping us. How much is it helping us? And that's going to have a direct impact on revenue. So we're doing a lot of things right now to look at ROI. Lots of initiatives, lots of AI stuff.
Yeah.
How much of it do you want to spend time on, and is it going to increase your revenue? Get your product to market faster. Get those customers up and running more quickly. So that kind of next level KPIs.
Yeah, it's really interesting because when you think about it, like a lot of times you look at the historical to know what you're going to do in the future, but with the model you were describing, you can't always look at what you were doing in the past. So how do you find that balance?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting, and we're still learning.
Yeah.
And of course, now we have a lot more access to data, a lot more ways to look at things. And is there seasonality? We've thought for sure, it's December, people aren't going to to clinical sites for clinical research. No, that's not the case at all. That's one of the things we learned by looking at scheduled visits. So we're learning all the time. Even though the company's been around for 10 years, it's still, we learn new things every day.
So what do you look for when you're hiring new team members, especially with knowing that we have AI coming, we have all these different things happening? What do you look for when you're looking to hire new people?
It's really interesting because a former employee of mine just reached out to me, and he worked for me for a very long time, and due to some health issues, he's not been working for a couple years, so he's getting back into the job market, and he said to me, I'm just nervous, I don't know what to do. And I said, you need to go and take a Coursera course, a ChatGPT, whatever, just to be able to speak to AI, because it's going to, the internet was like this, right? Everyone was like, oh, the internet and searching on the web and all that stuff. I think that AI is going to become just a part of everyday work, everyday life. So I think that people have to kind of embrace that. I'm absolutely, like in accounting and finance, you have to have some foundational skills, right? I don't think that you have to necessarily know the industry that we're in. I didn't know anything about clinical trials when I first went to work for a clinical software company. I learned it. So I think it's more about work ethic and what their kind of background brings to the table, a willingness to learn. Again, that kind of continuous learning. I'm seeing a little bit of maybe some resistance, and I get that because if people are like, oh, but it's like this is comfortable. I'm used to doing it this way, and so having people that are willing to like trust me, and embrace kind of like improving and sort of next level things, right? So you always need those people that are kind of good at just doing the rote tasks, but I'm definitely looking for people that want a little more.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, as you're going through this transition, especially this AI boom, like, how do you kind of develop your team through that transition? Because it's uncomfortable.
It is, and I'm learning it. So the one good thing is that our company is embracing it, and we're starting to do some things to empower people, and we've given everybody a license to Claude so that they can start to explore that. We have some AI champions within the company that are kind of like the go-tos for that. But more specifically, even for finance, through some of the things that I've learned, just what we can do through AI and through some of the tools even in NetSuite, we're going to do some training. And we can leverage our partners for that. We can do some in-house stuff. You have to make the time for it, I guess, is the big thing. Everybody's got their day job. We're never going to be doing it during the first week of the month. But I think it's going to have to be a little bit of collaboration. And so I'm going to show them some things. And I have an employee that is working with me. She's kind of works with me and our operations department. She's very much a champion of AI and financially minded. So I'm going to leverage her to kind of help us brainstorm and teach and things like that. But I think we need to provide opportunities for people to learn. Yeah. Otherwise, they're not gonna.
So you have to kind of create that growth mindset because it's really easy to get stuck in your ways.
Yeah, and it kind of I think that organic energy within the company from other people doing things, and I think by me and our CEOs embracing it and kind of leading by examples. We just had a company meeting this week, and 2 employees just presented on something that they built in ChatGPT, and it was cool because it was really neat what they did. It helped more than just them, and it also gave them exposure to stand up in front of the company and say, "Hey, I did this, and that's really cool." And I think that's pretty powerful with your peers, to kind of not be afraid of it. A lot of people are afraid of it. They don't, We've had some rumblings, like, was my job, was something going to happen to my job, and we're trying to say it's not to replace anybody, it's to enhance what you're doing. And from a business perspective, certainly it's not lost on me that if people are more efficient and can do more, that maybe we won't have to hire as many people. That's really good for bottom line and gross margin, but it doesn't change the fact that we're not, no one's roles are at risk because we're, introducing this.
It's a tool in your toolkit as opposed to something you're using to do your job.
100%. Yep. Yeah.
So I'd like to ask, you've had a wonderful career. You've been in so many different companies. So if somebody listening to this conversation, they're a few years into their career and they want to kind of make that move into leadership, get the CFO. What advice would you give them? What skills should they be developing right now? Yeah,
I think that it really, for me personally, and I think this kind of goes for anyone, I started at a big company. It's a great way to learn kind of this is what when you have everything at your disposal, kind of this is what it looks like. But hopefully you have, you're working for someone that is empowering you, letting you do new things. That was a big part of my journey. I had one of my early on bosses. I got to a point in the company where I really kind of got stuck, and he recognized that, and he said, if you want to grow, you have to go. Like you have to go take that. So it was like my first accounting manager job. So I think it's, don't be afraid to push yourself. You're able to do more than you think you are. And with all the tools available to you now, if you don't know the answer, you can probably figure it out pretty easily. There's so much remote work. We're a fully remote company. You have to find ways to make yourself known to the company. I mean, you can't just be kind of sitting back in the corner. Having a network, mentors, people that you can go to, get advice from. My CFO group, which I belong to, I leverage it all the time. Leadership types of things. I mean, there's all kinds of, resources that you can do, whether it's books or, seminars or things like that on leadership. But a lot of it has to do with demonstrating your ambition, your willingness to take on things, hopefully working for somebody that is, willing to empower you and give you opportunities, because that's how I got here. Somebody was very confidently saying to me, you can do this. You're good at this. You know what you're doing, and believing that, and not being afraid to take chances. So when I pivoted to that first software company, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? So don't put yourself at risk, but push yourself and find ways to stand out, and continuous learning. Always up in your skills is definitely a big part of it.
Awesome. Well, Sue, thank you so much for coming on the podcast,
Yes.
for chatting with us today here in New York City.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
This has been Count Me In, IMA's podcast, providing you with the latest perspectives of thought leaders from the accounting and finance profession. If you like what you heard and you'd like to be counted in for more relevant accounting and finance education, visit IMA's website at www.imanet.org.